There are moments in life that remain with you forever, even after years have passed. Not because they were dramatic or extraordinary in the way movies portray heroism, but because they quietly change the way you see the world. Sometimes it happens in an instant. Sometimes it unfolds slowly. And sometimes it begins with a life that everyone else has already given up on. My name is Daniel, and for many years I have been involved in helping rescue abandoned animals. Over time you see a lot of difficult things. You see neglect. You see suffering. And you see the consequences of human indifference. But every now and then, there is a case that leaves a mark much deeper than the others. The dog we later named Atlas was one of those cases. Even now, long after the day we first met him, I still remember the feeling in my chest when I saw him for the first time. It was not anger, though anger would have been understandable. It was something heavier. A quiet sadness that settled deep inside. No one knew exactly what had happened to Atlas before we found him. The first people to discover him were local police officers responding to a routine inspection call. There had been complaints about an abandoned garage on the outskirts of town. The building had been empty for months. Dust coated everything inside. Broken tools were scattered across the floor, and the smell of rust hung in the air like a forgotten memory. When the officers walked in, they noticed something lying in the far corner of the garage. At first glance, it looked like garbage. A small pile of something pale and motionless. But as they stepped closer, the shape shifted. That was when they realized it was a dog. Atlas was barely alive. His body was so thin that every bone pushed sharply against his skin. His ribs formed a clear outline beneath his fur, and his spine looked like a jagged row of stones running down his back. It was the kind of sight that makes people look away instinctively, because the human mind struggles to accept how fragile life can become. When the officers tried to help him stand, they discovered something even worse. Atlas could not move his back legs. After a quick examination, it became clear that his spine had been severely broken. The injury had damaged the nerves controlling the lower half of his body. As a result, his hind legs dragged helplessly behind him. He could not walk. He could barely lift himself. Even breathing seemed to require effort. The officers carefully lifted him into their vehicle and brought him to the nearest animal shelter. Like many shelters, the staff there were used to difficult cases. But even they were shocked when they saw him. They did what they could. They cleaned him. They gave him water. They placed a blanket beneath him so the cold floor would not press against his bones. And then they waited. Because sometimes, the only hope for an injured animal is that someone will choose to help. But hope is not always enough. When people came to the shelter and saw Atlas, they did not see potential. They saw a broken animal. They saw expensive medical treatment, months of recovery, and the possibility that he might never walk again. And quietly, one by one, they walked away. Atlas remained there for nearly a week. 7 long days. 7 nights lying on a thin blanket, watching strangers pass by his cage. No one stopped. No one chose him. No one wanted him. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. It was my friend Michael, who occasionally helped coordinate rescue efforts with local shelters. His voice was calm, but there was a weight behind his words. "Daniel," he said, "there's a dog here. I think you should come see him." I drove to the shelter that same evening. When I walked into the room where Atlas was resting, the first thing I noticed was how small he looked. Not small because he was a puppy. Small because his body had wasted away. He lay quietly on the blanket, his thin chest rising and falling slowly with each breath. When he heard footsteps, his eyes opened. They were not aggressive eyes. They were not angry. They were simply confused. As if he could not understand how the world had brought him to this place. A volunteer placed a bowl of food in front of him. For a moment, Atlas did nothing. Then slowly, painfully, he began dragging himself forward using only his front legs. The effort alone looked exhausting. But when he reached the bowl, something changed. He began eating. The way he ate was heartbreaking. Not wild or desperate in the way starving animals sometimes behave, but cautious and weak, almost like a child who had forgotten what food felt like. In that moment, everyone in the room fell silent. Because it was obvious that Atlas had not eaten properly in a long time. And at that moment, I knew something else. I knew we could not leave him there. That was the day Atlas came home with us. The first few days were extremely difficult. Physically, Atlas was fragile. His body had endured severe trauma and long periods of starvation. Feeding him required patience, because too much food too quickly could shock his system. But the physical injuries were only part of the problem. Emotionally, Atlas was terrified. Whenever someone moved quickly near him, his body tensed. Whenever a hand reached toward him, he tried to pull himself away, even though his injured body made that almost impossible. It was clear he had experienced something that shattered his trust in people. So we began slowly. We spoke to him softly. We stayed near him without forcing contact. We allowed him to learn, at his own pace, that he was safe. One thing surprised us. Atlas never tried to bite. Even when frightened. Even when we needed to clean his wounds or move his body. He simply watched us with quiet, uncertain eyes. That told us something important. Atlas had not been born afraid of people. At some point in his life, he must have trusted someone. One night, something unexpected happened. Late in the evening, we heard a faint sound coming from the room where Atlas rested. When we went to check on him, we saw him struggling. He was trying to stand. His front legs pushed against the floor as his body trembled with effort. For a brief moment, he managed to lift himself. Then he collapsed. But he tried again. Watching that moment changed something in all of us. Because it showed us that Atlas had not given up. He still wanted to live. Over the following weeks, Atlas began to improve slowly. His appetite grew stronger. His body started gaining weight. The sharp edges of his bones softened, and his coat slowly regained its shine. But his back legs remained a challenge. They still responded weakly, and often he could not feel them at all. Even so, Atlas continued trying. To encourage him, we began placing small pieces of food around the room. Atlas would drag himself across the floor, reaching each piece one by one. Every movement required effort. But every movement was progress. Sometimes I sat beside him and spoke quietly. "You're safe here," I would tell him. He did not understand the words. But he understood the feeling. And every time his tail wagged, even slightly, it felt like a small victory. Months passed. Atlas slowly became stronger. His eyes no longer carried the same confusion they once did. Instead, there was curiosity there. And sometimes, even joy. He especially loved being outside. At first we carried him into the yard so he could feel the sun and fresh air. He would lift his head slightly, sniffing the breeze like someone rediscovering the world. It was during those moments that Atlas met another rescue dog named Luna. Luna was gentle and patient, and almost immediately the two of them became friends. They would lie beside each other under the sun, quiet and peaceful. For Atlas, that companionship meant everything. Today, Atlas still faces challenges. He may never run the way other dogs do. But when I watch him moving across the yard, determined and hopeful, I see something far more powerful than physical strength. I see resilience. I see a life that refused to disappear, even when everyone else had already given up. And every time Atlas looks up at me with those bright, trusting eyes, I am reminded of something simple. Sometimes the greatest miracles in life are not dramatic events. Sometimes they are quiet moments. Moments when a broken life is given another chance. And chooses to keep living.